Fortnite crew, the final Victory Road tournament before the World Championships just wrapped up. Today, Mr. Underhill rated us. That's what happened. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you so much, Alex. Anyways, Fortnite crew, we are going through the results of the Victory Road tournament, and it's the last one before the World Championships, which is in 10 days now. The Victory Road tournaments have been really good because after, NAIC, there's practically no tournaments. And this is also like incredibly important because like there's just no way to gauge the metagame in Regulation MB without this. Regulation MB is a metagame that is only going to be played officially at the World Championships, I believe. So we really had no way of gauging it. That being said, MB and MA are very similar with the exception of a few notable introductions, most notably the Life Orb and 2 Mega Pokemon in Mega Staraptor and Mega Raichu Y. This tournament is going to be one of our best previews for the World Championships because it is the most up-to-date thing that we can use to analyze the metagame. And because it's so near to the World Championships, it's likely going to be the thing that it's likely like when people are kind of panicking and trying to get as much practice as they can before the actual event. Now, this whole thing was won by Hyungwoo Shin, and the team is a very well-established archetype. Delphox, Blastoise, balance with Sinistcha support. Effectively, by running both Delphox and Blastoise, this team is able to leverage their capability of running the exact same partners. Basically, like they're just two megas that don't really step on each other's toes. Blastoise is able to go for like a really scary setup mode by leading off with Incineroar or Sneasler or Sinistcha for that matter, and going for Fake Out or Redirection with Shell Smash, and then following it up with a Water Spout. Usually they don't lead off with Sinistcha, and the reason for that is because there's no way to stop like a Sucker Punch on this team, so King Gambit can be a little bit of a nuisance. That being said, by running Sinistcha, you're able to kind of circumvent that option by recovering off health that you lose on your Blastoise with Hospitality, while also having the option to redirect the Sucker Punch. Just taking a look at the raw damage that Blastoise is capable of, I wouldn't be surprised if this team did win the World Championships. It wasn't my top pick. I've always found it to be a little bit middling compared to like the other options, like, Rain Charizard and that. Even like I know that like the big thing that people are talking about for the World Championships right now is Raichu Y Staraptor stuff. But I always found that like the Snow Mega Scovillain team was extremely impressive. But yeah. So into like a King Gambit, you can see that a Water Spout is doing 58% to 69% at full health. However, if you do get that Shell Smash off, now it's basically a one-shot into like most of the metagame. Even some of the bulkier Pokemon like Floette Eternal do not want to have to tank that hit, despite the fact that they are considered to be like some of the biggest special defensive walls in the game. You can see that 26 HP Floette is taking 88 to 104%, meaning it's a roll to KO. And if they're a fast Floette, it's a guaranteed KO on them. So that is terrifying. There are ways to play around it, obviously. The team, you could argue, has a weakness to King Gambit. However, I think that the team covers for it pretty effectively. There's a Sneasler, there's Redirection with the Sinistcha, and there's an Incineroar. More or less, you play the Blastoise like a way to soften up the team for King Gambit and Sneasler in the back, or even Incineroar. Delphox is also a very solid option for the Mega on this team, as it plays very similar to the Blastoise. Delphox doesn't have that massive Water Spout, but it also doesn't have a move that's dependent on its HP, which means it can be a little bit more consistent to certain matchups. Delphox is pretty strong into the Sun matchup because of this, because not only is it able to Fake Out and go for a Nasty Plot, then take advantage of Sun and go for Heat Waves and Psychics, but it's just a very good Pokemon overall to cover for Blastoise's weaknesses. Something you might notice with the Blastoise is that it doesn't run any non-Water Spout water type moves, and that's just because frankly, Blastoise doesn't need it. It's able to deal massive damage off of just like a base, off of like a no boosts max HP Water Spout or like a boosted half HP Water Spout. It's about the same amount of damage, and its goal is just to soften things up for Gambit anyway. So the team is strong. I can honestly see why it would do well at the World Championships. I mean, it's been consistent this entire metagame. The team that I genuinely, I'm putting my money on it to win the Worlds is this one. You see that Felipe here brought the team that I think has a good shot to win Worlds. It's just because it's so neutral to like literally every metagame, into every archetype in the metagame. Scovillain, Frostlass, Sun. Why am I saying Sun? Balance. Sorry, I'm like so tired right now. Scovillain, Frostlass, Balance. This team has just been so consistent this entire format, but it's consistent in a way that I think is really funny because it hasn't been consistently winning events. It's been consistently getting like top 4 or second. It hasn't quite won anything, I don't believe. It might have won something like a while back, but in MB, it's been not quite there, but still good. And this is one of the MA archetypes that got translated over to MB, pretty much 1-for-1 with the exception of some items moving around. The original version of this team ran an extremely bulky Basket Legion with almost no speed. I'm not sure how this one was built that got second place. However, I would imagine it's not quite as bulky because it's running the Life Orb. But yeah, basically this team is, it feels like every team in this archetype or in this metagame plays kind of the exact same way. You soften things up with your spread moves, or you lead off Scovillain and King Gambit, go for your setup, and then KO things in the back with Lycanroc and, you know, Basket Legion and Sneasler. That being said, the team does have a very massive Charizard weakness, which necessitates the use of Lycanroc. I think Lycanroc is a really cool Pokemon for this team, specifically because it's the only team that Lycanroc has ever really succeeded on. Tough Claw's boosted close combat is a guaranteed one-shot into King Gambit. I think even through Choppleberry. Let me double check that. If I remember correctly, it's like the Tough Claws that does it, right? Maybe maybe that's just like the other Lycanroc couldn't one-shot without the Choppleberry, and this one can. Let me see. Lycanroc, Dusk, Adamant Sash into King Gambit. I don't think it KOs through Choppleberry, but it might. Close combat. No, it doesn't KO through Choppleberry, but it like cleanly KOs King Gambit, even at -1. That's what it was. Sorry, it's been so long since I've had to think about this Pokemon. Yeah, -1 Adamant still KOs King Gambit, which is very important. It's also a check to an extent for Sash Pokemon because of the existence of Accelerock. This means that on a lead where you're going for, I guess on a lead against like a Whimsicott, which typically runs a Focus Sash, Lycanroc is able to pick up the Whimsicott before it's able to go for its Tailwind, depending on the build of the Whimsicott, because Whimsicott can be quite fast, but if the Lycanroc does manage to outspeed, then Accelerock will go before Tailwind, but it also is just able to pick up Sash on a bunch of like scary Pokemon like Aquajet, not Aquajet, Focus Sash Basket Legion, and even like Sash King Gambit, which runs around here and there. Sash Venusaur also a very big one. You just prevent them from being able to do anything. And Rock Slide is Rock Slide. It's just the move that kind of dominates the format. Yeah, this team is just really good. I think that it's one of the more, I think if you give this team like the right schedule and the right player, it's just winning Worlds. I don't think it's broken. I just think that it is one of the most solid, if you pilot it well, you pilot it well teams that we see right now. So, yeah.
This channel is partnered with GamerSupps. If you want to support my work and get great tasting drinks, you can order GamerSupps through my link in the description down below or with code Moxie boosted at checkout for 10% off. GamerSupps is a caffeinated product that I recommend only to my 18+ viewers, but my link will send you to their caffeine-free product section just in case. Every product purchased through my link supports my channel financially, so I'd really appreciate the support. Now back to the video.
That team's very strong. We see here, Dorian finished quite well with Mega Gengar. Don't believe this is Perish. Oh, it is Perish. But Gengar and Ninetales are a very, very, very good duo. We've seen them paired quite a bit recently. MDB recently won a tournament with the duo. However, that team had a Swampert on it. I think that Gengar Ninetales is especially powerful because if you just lead poorly into it, you just lose. You literally just don't have a way to beat it because Encore and what was it, like just trapping in a Pokemon with Gengar, like a Garchomp, which is typically what you want to use to get rid of the Gengar, with the Ninetales with the Choice Scarf, basically removes any counterplay to it. You can go for Protect with the Gengar. You can go for Blizzard. If they want to lead off with like Incineroar, that's technically a way to deal with it, but like even then, that's not like the greatest lead versus the team, because the Inner Focus Dragonite, which has been picking up a little bit recently on these Gengar teams due to MDB's recent innovation with that. Not that Inner Focus Dragonite is like new, it's just that in this format, if you're running a Dragonite, it's more or less going to be multi-scale like all the time. However, the way that Gengar plays currently, Perish Song isn't like the main way you're playing this team. Perish Song is there as a win condition. Gengar exists mostly to trap things in with Pokemon that they really don't want to deal with. You can see that the Sneasler is running Rock Slide. That's for a very specific reason. Sneasler can KO a chipped Charizard. If the Charizard is running like a bulkier set, then it'll have to be chipped down. But Sneasler is able to KO a chipped Charizard with Rock Slide. A Charizard cannot switch out due to Gengar's ability Shadow Tag. Incineroar is able to KO Pokemon like not Golden Go technically because that can't be trapped, but like King Gambit with Flare Blitz. King Gambit able to KO opposing, I don't know, not ghost types, but you know, it's a good Pokemon. It's just there to be there. Ninetales is there to get rid of like Garchomp and stuff. And Dragonite just has the coverage to deal with everything. A Life Orb superpower from a Dragonite is pretty much always going to KO an Incineroar. Dragon Claw is pretty much always going to KO a Garchomp, and Extreme Speed is just there to deal with things. This is a very solid archetype right now. This is also like a contender for like winning worlds. However, this is an archetype that kind of popped up out of nowhere with MDB's Swampert variant of it. So it's important to note that this is the archetype that probably has the least amount of development on it at this moment, but still a strong late game contender for this metagame winning in this metagame for winning the world championships. It has a little bit of an edge due to the fact that people aren't really prepping for Gengar trapping stuff. It sort of went to the wayside a few weeks ago or months ago even. So now it's like kind of an underdog that people just aren't ready for. We have the day one team, which I think is really funny. Fourth place, Hector Sanchez. Day one, Charizard, Floette, Basculegion, Chople, King Gambit, Whimsicott, Garchomp. You really can't go wrong with this team. I ranked the Pokemon that I ranked like the Mega Pokemon based off of how likely they were to win the World Championships. And I want to do another video where I rank the archetypes based on how likely they were to win the World Championships. I will say that Charizard was S tier and Floette was A tier in my ranking on which Mega would win Worlds. This is the team I envision with Charizard. However, the reason I ranked Charizard so high was because of every other team that Charizard fits on. We see a Charizard team that also uses, you know, the Gengar trapping technology. We see a Charizard team that uses a similar method of Gengar trapping. However, it is using a Toxapex instead, where you can trap in, you know, any Pokemon you want by infestation with the Charizard to get rid of things. Whereas the Gengar, you can't bring the Charizard to that. You know, you can only have one Mega Pokemon per game. But yeah, Venusaur, Charizard, Sun's also really strong. Charizard, if you had to bet on any Mega to win the World Championships, you gotta bet on Charizard. That is the one. That is the Pokemon that is probably going to win. However, Charizard did not win this tournament. So it goes to show that, you know, it's not guaranteed. There's a lot of things that could win. This is the team that had been doing extremely well in previous weeks. I guess we should talk about this, but I want to talk about Marcus's team first. This is the team that has been doing extremely well in the previous weeks of VR, has been kind of dominating top cuts in late regulation MB. It's just Staraptor, Raichu. They cover for each other so well. Staraptor is just a Pokemon that gets you a ton of value while also having Brave Bird. You have no drawback in your close combat. You can't be intimidated, you can't be icy winded, you can't be Electro Web because you just get boost off of all those instead. It's very difficult to deal with Staraptor. The current iteration of Staraptor is very different from what we saw at the beginning of the format. A lot of people were really babysitting their Staraptors with Grimmsnarls and Sinistchas and all these other things. Truth be told, Mega Pokemon, as strong as they are in current VGC, are not as... The gap between them and a regular Pokemon is much lower nowadays. King Gambit with a Life Orb feels like a Mega Pokemon. Rockhead Head Smash Arcanine feels like a Mega Pokemon sometimes, you know? The gap is not quite as big. And for that reason, I don't think that babysitting Staraptor was ever going to be the best way to use it. The current way of using it is just by using it as this really, really effective anti-intimidate user with King Gambit, with Sylveon, with Arcanine, with these middling speed Pokemon that really love Tailwind. Guess what? Raichu is able to do the same thing while covering for matchups that Staraptor doesn't want to deal with. Raichu is able to deal with a Charizard matchup, which Staraptor does not like because Charizard just has a lot of immediate damage output that Staraptor doesn't like dealing with. It's also able to provide the same type of speed control by cutting the speed in half of every Pokemon on the field permanently if it lands a Zap Cannon on that Pokemon. That is really good for King Gambit, Sylveon, and Hisuian Arcanine in the endgame, right? That's really all they really need is just to be able to move first. And Staraptor is able to deal with the matchups that Raichu doesn't like. If you see a sand matchup, Staraptor's coming to that, but Raichu certainly isn't. That's what we're really looking at here. It's just incredible how powerful this duo has become in late VGC. You really just can't overstate just how good they are. It is a really strong combo. Are they going to win Worlds? I put them in A tier. I have to rank like the archetypes soon, but yeah. The other variant, I mean, this is just a Staraptor team, not quite the same. There's no Raichu. There's not as many middling speed Pokemon. This is more like a hyper offense Staraptor. You know, you see the Focus Sash Glimora. We see the Whimsicott. Whimglim is already like a really good combo. Whimglim also coincidentally runs Fake Tears to make the Glimora a lot more scary, but also you're able to run Fake Tears to make the Staraptor more bulky. Just kind of serendipitously works out like that. It also has Charm to make Staraptor scarier. This is a little bit more of a babysat Staraptor, but once again, you know, it's mostly because the tools are there where Whimsicott's able to, like, you know, it has the move slots available. This team is strong. Not sure if I would bet on this one to win Worlds, but yeah. Blaziken and Mega Frostlass. That's a duo that has been popping up a little bit here and there. Blaziken is kind of like a Charizard, but it doesn't step on opposing weather's toes. And Blaziken can also low-key function without its Mega form, due to the fact that it's basically just a mini version of its Mega. Rock Slide is what really sets Blaziken apart. It is a speed-boosting Pokemon that is able to KO King Gambit. It's able to KO Incineroar. It's able to KO... trying to think who else. Golden Go, able to KO opposing Frostlass, and of course, with Rock Slide, able to KO opposing Charizard. So, this is a team that you could argue kind of like doesn't bring Blaziken into a lot of matchups because Frostlass and Friends are such a strong combo as is. However, King Gambit Blaziken is like a really good duo as well. Blaziken provides enough offensive pressure where it makes it so King Gambit feels free to Swords Dance and Sucker Punch. But, you know, the King Gambit is also providing a ability in Defiant that prevents people from wanting to intimidate the Blaziken. It's a really good duo. Like, you know, it's strong. Not what I would bet to win Worlds, but still a strong contender here and there. And yeah, I mean, beyond that, it is mostly just like the archetypes that we've seen before. Trying to see if there's anything I'm really like forgetting about. Marco Fiero, of course, running like Charizard, Aerodactyl, Sylveon stuff. This is once again a day one team. Not day one, more like week one. We see Blastoise and Delphox once again. We see more Charizard. This is an interesting one. Tyler Betcher, who ran a Mega Glimora, Mega Frostlass, and Glaceon team. I see how the combo would work. Mega Glimora shows up to Sun, Glaceon shows up to, maybe not Sand, but like it deals with Garchomp, which Glimora doesn't want to have to do since it's 1 point slower. Bright Powder Snowcloak Glaceon. All right, we're not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. That's scary, and I will be using that later. We're keeping that in my back pocket for a video. But yeah. As far as the non-top cut teams, there's still a couple of really cool ones. Trying to see, there was like a Venusaur that did well. I believe it was a Greek player. I'll find it later. But yeah, I think that as far as like metagame development, we're kind of at the end of it for Regulation MB. We've kind of gotten to the point where everything's fat and bulky, and we're mostly just playing the speed control wars. We see that with the Blastoise Delphox. We see that with the Frostlass. Frostlass has no speed control. It mostly just has like offensive pressure, but like it's a bulky team. Everything on this team has so much bulk on it. Gengar is like one of the more offensive teams in the metagame. And yeah, like these Staraptor Raichu teams are just like really terrifying. I really don't have too much to say beyond that. I'll have a follow-up video coming up in a couple of days where I just talk about, I think I'm just going to rank the actual team archetypes based on how likely I think they are to win. I'm not going to put like a full 6 on there, but I'll put like a, you know, a duo Pokemon and then explain like what the archetype represents, sort of like Gengar trapping, that sort of thing, or, you know, Delphox, Blastoise stuff. But yeah, those are just my thoughts right now. I just wanted to talk about the final tournament. Worlds is coming up in a couple of days, so make sure you stick around for that. If you're watching the video on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.